Thank you, Dr. Babar, for doing this Facebook Live with us. Starting off, please just share why is the Indus River called the lifeline of Pakistan?
Thank you, Fatima, for giving us this opportunity to share some of the experiences which we have gathered over the past 17 years while working in the Karakum Hindu Kush Himalayan mountain areas of Pakistan, and now in the coastal areas of Pakistan also. Perhaps Indus, as its name refers to, is not just a river. It's more about a civilization, a culture very rare and unique in the world, and one of the longest rivers out of 10 in the world. As far as your question of why it's called the lifeline of Pakistan is because of the role Indus River, rather the waters of Indus River play in the economy and society of Pakistan, gives it basically this name of the lifeline of the country. As you know, Pakistan is more an agricultural country, certainly because of the contribution of agriculture, which is more than 20% of the GDP coming from agriculture, and agriculture being Pakistan being an agrarian society, so mainly our agriculture depends on the water coming from Indus River. Secondly, the water in Indus also contributes to the energy sector of Pakistan. We have quite a few dams and hydropower station installed on Indus River, which provide energy to the country and keep the industrial wheel running. And both agriculture and industry accommodate more than 70% of the labor force, and that actually makes the main part of our economy, and that's how we call it the lifeline of the national economy actually, because of its contribution in the GDP. In addition to that, from a conservationist point of view, I would call it the lifeline of the nation because of its contribution to the coastal ecosystem. It links the country both from the mountains to the mangroves. It links the country from north down to the south. And it also links the country from east to the west, because Indus and its tributaries and the water flowing from different tributaries actually come from all of the regions of Pakistan, whether it's be the north, or where we have the largest masses of ice and snow, some of the highest peaks in the world, including the K2, and many others, almost 5 peaks above 8,000 meters there in the Karakoram and Himalayas, and some of the longest glaciers on the earth after the polar region. So all these snow and ice masses greatly contribute to the flows of water into the Indus River, and at the same time river flowing from the western borders like Kabul River and from eastern borders like Ravi and Satluj, they also drain into parts of the Indus. So in that sense, it's sort of a soft yet liquid skeleton of the country. It links and connects each and every part, rather each and every corner of the country together. And Indus is the only river that flows just across the entire country, from Kerman up in the north to the Arabian Sea down in the south. And you probably know mangrove is one of the very precious ecosystems that luckily we have in Pakistan. And mangroves are very important for the coastal area. It serves as a barrier basically against the vulnerabilities that emanate from the Arabian Ocean or North Indian Ocean, and that may really affect the life of people and their social and capital assets on the coast. So this Indus River and the silt in particular coming from the plains and mountains of Pakistan down to the coastal area provide a habitat where mangroves grow. So we can say without adequate flow of fresh water from the Indus, mangroves can never exist in the coast, and then there will be no barrier at all to stop the erosion and intrusion impacts of seawater into the agricultural land. So that's why it's often called the lifeline of the country, and in particular because of its contribution to the GDP, it's called the backbone of the economy.
So, talking about climate change, which is one of the key environmental issues that we face, and seeing how, in general, public in Pakistan, is still in the process of understanding what this issue is, how it's creating a problem with it. So, please just generally talk about how climate change is impacting specifically Pakistan, because the general impression is, it's something that it's more concerned with the Western countries. So, how it's impacting Pakistan, share that, and also कि उसका कितना impact होता है on the Indus River? Is it directly impacting? Is it an issue for the Indus River?
You are right, Fatima, in saying that the common man of the country, the common Pakistani doesn't really understand the dynamics of climate change, and yes, that's right, because climate change is a science. And sometimes we relate the science, when we relate the science with the common things happening around us, that becomes a bit of tricky and difficult to understand. For everyone, science neither carries a lot of importance nor the significance in its social and economic sphere of activities. So that's how it becomes difficult for a common man to understand the things happening on the science side and linking them to the ground realities. Pakistan is, I often feel, thankful to God for, giving us this beautiful patch of land. It's perhaps one of the very few countries on the earth which have a diverse topography, a diverse geography, a diverse ecology, with both the 0 meter at the sea and along the coast, and going up to 8,000, about 8,000 meter peaks in the north, which make the country really unique in terms of geography and its ecology. In that sense, climate change, which has proved to be a fact now, which cannot be denied and can no more be denied even, is happening all around the world, and so Pakistan is not an escape. It is rather more vulnerable than the countries which don't have really a sharp gradient in their topography and geography. Because climate change, although it's happening everywhere, but its impacts can be really obvious and very, very clear in 2 of the places quite often. One is the high altitude places like mountains and peaks, where there is ample snow and ice mass, and ice could be one of the indicators of climate change, because with a little change in the temperature, ice starts melting, and that's tell the people, and it becomes very easier for a common man to understand, yes, that this is happening something. And similarly, the coastal area is again another place where an impact of climate change can easily be seen, observed, analyzed and understood because of the changes in the surface of the sea level. If melting is happening somewhere on this earth, and obviously the volume of water will have to change as a result of that melting or condensation, whatever the process is happening. So Pakistan having the ice mass on the northern side and the Arabian Sea on the southern side is highly vulnerable to climate change. And having two of the fast developing economies in the neighborhood, one is China and the other is India, we are equally affected by the industrial development impacts of these two fast emerging economies. Because there are no barriers, no boundaries in the air, and air share is very common, unlike the ground. So gases which really become the cause of global warming or say temperature rises in a locality equally affect the entire region irrespective of the national boundaries. So whenever there is a slight change in the temperature up in the north, the glacier mass, the snow mass, the ice there starts melting randomly, which creates a huge amount of uncertainty. And this uncertainty has become very clear during the last few decades actually. Sometimes we while in very scientific forums while discussing the matter of climate change, we say climate change has been happening for the last many decades, rather centuries. But the problem is an issue we are faced with now has emerged during the last 2 decades only. And that has happened because of the increase, because of the enormous increase, I would say, in the rate of the change of climate actually. And when we talk of the climate, we normally refer to 2 parameters in that. One is precipitation and the other is temperature. If you observe the last 100 years data, climatic data of the Pakistan Meteorological Department, you will see a clear trend of the temperature increasing across Pakistan. Either it's be the coastal area of Pakistan, or the plains of Pakistan, hills of Pakistan, or further the mountainous areas of Pakistan. We can easily understand that the temperatures have increased. Although the rate of increase has been very slow and very small, but as I said earlier, even a smaller fraction of change in temperature can highly impact the snow and ice mass in the mountain areas. So that is happening. We witnessed the super floods of 2010 and then further erratic and devastating floods continuously almost thereafter in 2012, 14, 15, 17. And this is happening because of the climatic variability, which is uncertain to a great extent. I'm using uncertainty because of the lack of understanding of the climatic dynamics happening all around. It's new to the scientific community equally as it is new to the common man. So we all are trying to understand what is happening actually to the snow mass because of the changes in the climatic patterns. And changes in the climatic patterns are measurable. That's how they are very easy to understand compared to what is happening, which we cannot see and understand easily. Like with a slight change in temperature, if we look at the data of the Pakistan Meteorological Department, the minimum temperatures and maximum temperatures both are changing. Say if the minimum temperature in winter increases, it means that there will be less snowfall on the mountains. And if the maximum temperature in summer increases, that will result in rapid melting of the snow which has fallen last summer there. So in nutshell, the balance of ice and snow mass will be the factor which determine availability of water for agriculture, drinking, industry, hydropower, even for the mangroves downstream. So this all needs to be explored scientifically, understand it, and then recommend something for how we can manage the water. So this sort of scientific information, when it comes to a common man, it becomes difficult for him how the changes in temperature and precipitation can impact his life. Simply, if I talk of precipitation in addition to temperature, you will see there was a time when in the mountains maximum snow used to fall in November, December, and January. Now the snowfall timing has changed. It has shifted towards January, February, March. Even this year we had a snowfall in April in some parts of Gilgit-Baltistan. So when there is late snowfall, it means that the fallen snow is highly susceptible to slightly increasing temperatures. The fallen snow will not get enough time to get condensed into ice, and the soft snow will melt very easily. And sometimes this type of melting, rather rapid melting, causes very serious type of floods alongside shortage of water when there is high peak cropping seasons in the plain areas of Pakistan, which means that there will be excess of water in the beginning, but eventually there will be a drought in the long run because our ice masses and snow masses will be decreasing in terms of volume. So all this dynamics in one or the other way affects the farmer who is dependent on the water in the Indus River. It affects the industry, which is dependent on the electric power coming from the dams and reservoirs. It affects the fisheries, which is dependent on the silt coming from Indus River into the coastal areas of Pakistan, where mangroves flourish, and a huge amount of shrimp industry and crab fisheries is linked with the mangrove forest. So Indus River, in addition to other rivers, other eastern rivers, is equally impacted by the changing climatic patterns in Pakistan.
So, can you share some of the projects that WWF Pakistan has worked towards, dealing with this issue, both in connection with climate change and in connection with the things that you say the rivers are impacted?
We cannot stop the climatic change that is happening all around the world. But yes, we can at least change ourselves to get adapted to the sudden changes that we are facing because of the fast changing climatic patterns, both in the north, in the middle, and in the southern areas of Pakistan. So WWF Pakistan during the last almost 1.5 decades has been first thing concentrating on understanding the dynamics of the climate change and its impact on local communities, local people's livelihood, in particular on the availability of water resources for irrigation and farming, etc. So one type of the work that WWF has been doing is to understand the dynamics of climate change and its impacts on community livelihoods and ecosystems. So we have been able to do some of the projects to working with the leading universities of the world and local universities and relevant research institutions. We conducted vulnerability and risk assessments in some of the highly risk areas in Pakistan, including both the mountains and the coastal areas, and then trying to implement some of the recommendations from those studies as pilot on disaster-prone areas of the country, either be it the coastal area or again in the mountain area. WWF-Pakistan has been primarily trying to identify sustainable solutions in terms of climate change adaptation to the emerging risks of climate change in Pakistan. One of the very important sectors where we have intervened in the mountains is to see how we can help local farmers address their irrigation water problems, particularly in the mountain agricultural systems. Use of technology sometimes is a great blessing, and the technologies like solar water pumping, hydro rain water pumping are very simple, small, yet very effective to address the shortage of irrigation water for mountain agriculture. And this issue was emerging because of the fast melting of glaciers. If you remember your visit to GB, if you have been there ever, you will see that the agriculture in the mountains is entirely dependent on glacier melt. People used to carve the channels from the glaciers through which water comes to their fields and they irrigate their farmlands. But unfortunately, during the last 1.5 decades, because of the changes and surges in the glacier system, sometimes these channels, could not fetch enough water from the glaciers because of the glacier movement. So in that cases, farmers either have to abandon their fields or migrate to some other places. So to help them, we have installed their solar water pumps, which help them lift water from the glacier melt into these channels, and in that way their irrigation systems are restored, and they have continued to irrigate their farms and cultivating different vegetables and crops. In other cases, energy is again a constant in the northern areas, because in the winter when there is high demand for electricity, glacier melt in the streams goes down. So there is less water for electricity. To address some sort of solution, to address this issue with some sort of solution which really doesn't need a high amount of energy, we tested hydro rain pumps. Hydro rain pumps are again very simple technology, a pumping technology which without use of energy. It works simply on the mechanics of gravitational flow. If there is a 10-meter head, the pump can lift the water up to 70 meters. So it multiplies the impact of gradient 7 times. And that's how the irrigation water from streams and nearby rivers is lifted again to the channels and then to the farmers' field, and they are getting water now for irrigating their small lands. So this is one type of adaptation work where we are helping the local communities to change their patterns of livelihoods, to change their living styles, and get adjusted to the changes which are brought in by the climatic changes in that area. But at the same time, we are having huge plantation drives. There's a climate mitigation intervention to help control the microclimate and the gaseous balance in the atmosphere. At the same time, some of the critical habitats where we have highest or second highest rates of deforestation, we are trying to introduce renewable energy sources. In some places, we are trying to introduce again simple technologies like fuel efficient stoves to reduce the pressure of firewood by local communities on the natural forest, which we are hopeful that will result in saving the natural forests and which will work as a carbon sink in the long run and help keep the gaseous balance in the atmosphere with minimum impact on minimum micro level impact on the local environment and climate.
So one of last question and a couple of questions that people have asked, the sum up is how can individuals help? both in Pakistan and outside Pakistan, people who are not like in this specific field, they don't have this scientific knowledge. So how can a layman help at an individual level to sort tackle this huge issue of climate change and what the impact it has on the Indus River?
The National Poetic Wall has rightly said that अफराद के हाथों में है अफ़वाहों की तकदीर. It's basically the attitude. It's basically our attitude, an individual's attitude, that often translates into a societal attitude. And when there are several societies, it becomes a nation. So everyone can play his due role as an individual, as a member of the society, as a member of his nation. And we all belong to this one country, Pakistan. And I think the most useful way of contributing to help Pakistan address the existing as well as emerging threats of climate change, he can simply go for planting a tree at his home. He can manage to reduce or avoid, if possible, the consumption of wood for domestic energy that is coming from the forest or plantations. And then he can, if he is an elected person, he can tell the facts, tell the real story of the climate change to other people. I mean, he can help raise awareness among other people, how they can manage the negative impacts of climate change. Fatima, here I would like to mention that we often talk of climate change as a very negative thing. In some areas it has very positive aspects as well. Like in the mountain areas, because of the slight increase in temperature, there is more land available now compared to the past for agricultural activity. But at the same time it's impacting, reducing the pastures or the alpine area where we have quite precious wild animals as well. So for a farmer, sometimes climate change has positive things as well. So we need to be aware of all these changes and try to take maximum advantage of the plus points while decreasing the negative impact of negative aspects of climate change.
Thank you.